everybody. Welcome to K Factor. I'm Ramy Sedra, your host. And on today's episode, we're going to talk all things data. Now, I've got two very special guests from our product and engineering team with me today. So wish them a very warm K Factor welcome to the show. We've got Carlos and Mithuna. Carlos is our CTO. Mithuna heads up our product on our data platform. Carlos, Mithuna, welcome to K Factor.
Hey, Ramy. Thank you so much for having us on. This is great.
Thank
Mithuna, you're not wearing your C60 t-shirt. I just picked up on that. We're going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, being the only girl on the team, I thought I'd get some style over here.
We can use it for
Thank
sure.
you. Thank you, Mithuna.
But I am C60. I wear the brand very proudly. So with that,
Awesome. We won't take it personally. So, friends, today we're talking all things data, which I know is a topic that's near and dear to your hearts. And what I thought we would do, I thought it could be a little bit of fun. I've got 5 myths I'd love for you to debunk. And these are 5 myths that I've basically been compiling. I was doing this on the weekend thinking, what would be 5, top things that customers or prospective customers worry about when it comes to data and potentially partnering with C60. And so I came up with this short list, and now let me rattle them off to you. Are you guys ready? You're going to take some notes?
There a drum roll? We're ready.
It should be a drum roll. Okay, so I'm just going to cheat and look over here at my notes. I think the first thing we hear in my list of myths is I don't have the data that I need to actually make use of C60. Second thing we hear is, my data's a mess. And the third, which is, kind of related, is it's going to take too long to implement C60. It's going to take too long to clean my data. Just too long. The fourth thing we often hear is, hey, is my data going to be secure in the cloud? And the fifth, certainly not least, is my data safe with C60, or are you going to give third parties access to my data, my recipes, my material costs, etc.? So these are the 5 myths that I'd love to talk about today and kind of debunk with you guys. So you guys down for that?
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first question we get is, I don't have the data I need to get value out of C60. Carlos, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, for sure. Let me try to jump on that one if that's okay, Mithuna.
absolutely.
All right. So I think that's a question that we kind of get pretty often. And I think it stems from, a few different things, right? It could be the size of your business, or it could be the fact that you only have like a dispatch system or a batch system, or, traditionally with AI products, you need to have large amounts of volume to run them through the algorithms. And that's one thing that when we sat and really started to think about what we wanted to offer the RMC industry is, how do we take away those constraints, and how do we kind of democratize the solution for all tiers of RMC producers? And if you're running a dispatch system or a batch system, we access all 5 streams or 5 streams of data. We can access your batch data, we can access your dispatch data, your QC data, your invoice and materials data, and we use all of this data to really process and run this through our analytics pipeline to get the insights that you need. So if you have any one of these systems, we can start very small And that's how we really built the technology, was to be able to serve those producers that are maybe just one plant, that haven't been around a long time, and they only have, the dispatch system, and don't necessarily have access to all of the streams of data that we process. They can get value out of the product through a subset of the dashboards, because in reality, we only need about a month's data for a company or an RMC producer to really get value from the product. So you don't need large quantities of data. You don't need very varied types of data. We can work with many streams of data. Like I mentioned before, we have our 5 streams that we support. But if you really only have a dispatch system and you don't have invoice and material data that you want to necessarily tap into right at the beginning, or you don't want to tap into your quality, your QC data, or you don't have a QC system, our product was really engineered to be able to enable the value that we bring for all tiers of RMC producers. So we've really thought about that in the engineering of the product, and we really thought about that in the technology and in our go-to-market, and really addressed that from the get-go, from the design.
So Carlos, that's pretty cool. So if I paraphrase, I guess what I'm hearing from you is that we really built the product for small right up to large producers, and whether they're starting small with us, a month or 3 months worth of data, whether that's focused on dispatch or batch, to more, mature or larger players that may have more streams that you described. So we really scale up or down depending on the size of the producer. Did I get that right?
That's exactly right. And, with the technology that we have, and, Mithuna, I think, will maybe touch on some of these other topics, but, the way we've built our connectors, they're really built to be able to enable small businesses to very large RMC producers.
Well, I guess that leads into the second myth, right? And I can imagine if I'm sitting in a producer's chair, and they're looking at C60 for the first time, and they're thinking, well, geez, I've got to integrate all of this different data from these different streams. My data is probably messy, and it's a lot of work to clean all that data. So I guess a couple of things come to mind. The first is, well, do I have to clean all this data before I use it? And the second is, if I don't clean it, is there still any way I can make use of it? So who wants to tackle that one?
Yeah, I guess that's my favorite topic. So maybe I'll take a stab at it. So, well, the fact is, most often, like it or not, data does get messy, right? Just like you said, because it's of different data sources and different many people actually who are inputting the data in the system. So it's very, very different perspectives of like how the data gets into the system. And in order to get an accurate output of what we are seeing in the data, we need a systematic way of handling it. So at C60, our software is designed to automatically clean, structure, and normalize so that you don't have to worry about like how the data is looking in my batch system versus dispatch system or the QC, etc. And we take care of all that, normalize it, and pre-process the data to create the actual output which actually matters to the producers. So we have all the tech and the tools in place to ensure the right data in the right format gets to our clients' access. We are also building these tools to be enabled for our clients and see for themselves which part of the data is not clean, and they can actually go clean themselves and make it even better for their own insights. All we need is access to your data, and we take care of making sure that you get the most comprehensive outlook of your business. Another thing that I would highlight what we do in C60 is incorporating the domain knowledge. So putting the data in the right perspective is very, very important to get the actual insights.
Mithuna, it's I'm hearing a couple of things, and just maybe
Yeah.
validate this for me, okay? First thing I heard from you is that we've actually engineered data quality procedures and data quality rules
Yeah,
into our product. So, did I understand correctly that C60 is basically taking a producer's raw data and running a whole bunch of data quality rules against that data to make sure that it's useful?
exactly. So there are like the data, we actually have the business rules which validate the authenticity of the data, which makes it easy for us to get the right data into the stream and into the data pipeline itself so that we get the accurate insights. And we have filters, which basically, if the data is not good enough, we take them out in the calculation so that it doesn't skew the overall insights for the producer.
Now, you said something interesting. You said, we also have the domain knowledge. So, and by domain knowledge, I'm assuming you mean ready mix concrete expertise. Is that correct?
Exactly. So our customer success team comprises of people who have industry knowledge of 25 years plus in the industry, and that makes it our product so unique and more reliable because all the domain knowledge is incorporated in the algorithms that we use to get the most accurate insights.
So basically, what we're saying is, or what you're saying rather, is that we're building and we're engineering all of these data quality rules. We've got all of this domain experience.
Yeah.
So we're taking that domain experience and we're applying the business rules to make sure that the way the data is used or is made to be used by a producer is actually uh,
Yeah.
more useful.
Yeah.
More useful.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, I think that really answers the question. So I think if I'm a producer, what I'm hearing is that, well, I'm bound to have messy data, right? Nobody's data is perfect,
Yeah.
but I could still rely on C60 for analytics because C60 is going to automate a lot of that data QA, and that data QA has industry know-how that's going to baked into the product. So I think that makes a ton of sense. Folks, the other myth that we get, right? So like myth number 3 is, if I've got data, Carlos, like the way you described it, right? You've got data from all these different systems to integrate.
Mhm.
I mean, that's going to take a long time to implement. So, how does C60 get implemented? And, how long does it take, given that we have to integrate all of this data and potentially, I would imagine, from a whole bunch of different systems?
I think I'll take this one. I'm excited to talk about this because this was one of the very first projects that I worked on, so it's very close to my heart. So, yeah, so integrations are usually complex, but we have made it easy. And two main things that makes it possible is our very user-friendly interface that we have built in the recent times and the partnership that we have with the vendors, which who actually give us what we exactly want, which is the bare minimum access details from the source systems. That's all we need to be integrated. And all this can be done just by confirmation with a customer and the vendor to basically get the access. And we have all the pre-built connectors in place, which is using the state of the art integration technologies, which makes it more easy whether your data is on cloud, on premise, or even if you have something proprietary. We have our own universal API connector, which allows you to connect to our C60 system effortlessly.
So, Mithuna, sorry to interrupt, but when you talk about vendors, can you clarify for our listeners what exactly you're referring to?
Absolutely. When I talk about vendors, it's basically the software providers for the RMC producers. Some of the examples are like Command Alkon, Markot, Sysdine, Mpac. All these systems are like basically providing the software for batch or dispatch or QC, and that's what we are talking about. Those are the integrations we have in C60, and we have all the connectors, which is pre-built, and all we need is just the access and we will get the data directly from these source systems.
So when you say we've got pre-built connectors, what do you mean? Can you give me a couple of examples?
For sure. So let's talk about some dispatch related information that we require. And we have a data model in C60 that we need in order to power up certain dashboards and provide you the insights. And in order to get that data, we need to map the data model that we have in C60 with the all the source systems that I just mentioned about, whether it is Command Alkan, Marquardt, Cystine, or MPAC. We need to understand what the data looks like in these systems for 60, and that mapping is what we called as a connector. And this is already done. So when a new client who is on any of these systems comes on board, all we need is we connect the system with the access details that we provide, and the mapping is already done, and we pull the data which is necessary automatically, and we were able to power up the dashboards.
So, Mithuna, when you say user access, do you mean just like a user and password, and that's all you need to connect to the system, and we can load the data?
Absolutely. Depending on whether you're on cloud or on premise, it's as simple as getting your username and password or the API key. So that's exactly what we need, which we sometimes directly get it from Command Alkan, Marquardt, or Cystine, the vendor themselves.
So let me get this straight. I give you, I'm a Cystine customer or a Command customer, or any of the system list that you give as examples. I provide C60, user password access or API access to those systems.
Yeah.
And that's it. C60 does the rest with those pre-built connectors that you described. Now, how long does it take for my data to go from, my system to the dashboards?
Well, it doesn't take too long. So we are targeting a 48-hour of onboarding a customer. So it's technically once we have the access to the client systems of on the pre-built connectors, we should be able to power up their dashboards within 48 hours.
Wow. So really for a customer or a producer, their investment in time and effort is basically providing that user password, and then,
Yeah,
in about a 48-hour window,
yeah, absolutely. And the
their
customer,
dashboards are up. Guess that leads me to the next question, which is, now we've gone from our data has gone from customers, batch system, dispatch, telematics, right up into their C60 cloud database. So now they're in the cloud. We've got a producer's integrated view of their data for them in their C60 database. The question we get all the time is, well, is my data safe? How do we answer that?
I'll take that one. That one's my favorite. That's where I spend a lot of my time, obviously. So for us, we take that very seriously. Obviously, we understand that there's a lot of value in the data, and that it's extremely important to protect. And so everything from in our system has been built ground up with the security and privacy in mind. Everything from the infrastructure that we use to run those databases to how we code. And we take that very seriously in the terms of how we actually host the RMC producers' data. And so one of the first things that we did is in our cloud strategy is we made sure that nobody was sharing data. And what we mean by that is in cloud infrastructure, you kind of have these two approaches. One is called single tenant, and the other is called multi-tenant. And what we've decided to do, because we know there are concerns and with data in this industry, and like most industries, we set out right off the beginning when we built and designed our infrastructure that every customer would basically have a private instance of their application, of their data, and all of their infrastructure. So none of that is shared between customers. And that for us was really critical, so that, our RMC producers and our customers know that there's no chance that data is co-hosted with somebody else's data, and that there's any possibility of an error of exposing data. So we really physically separate those things between customers, and that's really important. I think the second thing that we do that's really important is, even if we separate it physically, everything that's done through access and storing the data is done with security and privacy in mind. So how we access the data over the internet or over the network, how we store the data on the actual disks themselves, everything obviously is encrypted during transit. So while the data is being sent over to us, while it's being processed, and obviously important once it's resting and it's stored in our customer's database, everything is encrypted as well. So we make sure that all of the data is encrypted, either through transit when it's being accessed or when it's stored and at rest on disk. And that was really the second thing that was really important to us. And then the third thing that we did is we designed our system with a few extra security options in mind, because we do know that certain RMC producers might need extra levels of security, that they want to go the extra mile. And we do have additional options that are available. For example, one of the things that we do offer in certain situations is, if our customer or our RMC producer has their own Azure cloud environment, we can actually take our solution and deploy the data parts of it within their cloud environment, so that they only have access and they have full control over it. And we can host other portions of it to manage costs and keep it down in terms of operational costs. And so we really do look at it from, how do we store the data? How do we separate our customers, to how do we give our customers extra options when they have very specific needs or requirements? And we kind of built the technology, the infrastructure, to really have a hardened, foolproof way of separating our customers' data, protecting our customers' data, and then offering some special or some extra options when need be.
So, Carlos, it sounds like there's really almost like three core kind of tenets to what you described, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it sounds like the first one was, we purposely designed this multi-tenant architecture that basically means every customer has their own database,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not sharing a database with a whole bunch of other producers.
Exactly.
And I think the encryption piece that you described is interesting, because it's now what we're saying is, well, as that data gets stored, or even as it travels, right, from from the database to the dashboards, et cetera, that all of that sort of at rest and travel time, we've actually gone the mile to encrypt the data.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of another level of protection. And the third bit that I'm hearing is that, I guess, for customers who want to have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like their own, heightened level of control
Mm-hmm.
on their C60 database,
Mm-hmm.
is that they can actually even run the C60 data portion of the application in their own Microsoft Azure data cloud. And
Exactly.
so they're kind of like masters of their domain at that point. Did I get that right?
That's exactly right. And, in full transparency, most customers, when they work with us, they find that hosting the solution with us and running it within our environment, once they understand the security and the length that we go to, I would say about 95% of our customers are more than okay running it on our cloud. But there are certain situations, and we understand that we need to go take a different route for various reasons, and we do offer those options.
So, Carlos, for most customers that are implementing C60, so all of these protections that you described,
Mm-hmm.
are those typically enhancements or upgrades to the way they're currently operating, kind of before C60?
Yeah, for sure. And I think well, the short answer to that is definitely yes. With the customers we've spoken to, most customers don't have the level of rigor, nor do they need the level of rigor necessarily within their environments that we have to. Obviously, we have a liability that we have to our customers, and we want to make sure we offer the utmost protection in terms of securing their data and making sure that their data is private. So we do invest, I would say, heavily, or quite a bit more than your average ready mix producer client. So we definitely do invest quite a bit of our money, we definitely do invest quite a bit of our funds into securing and making sure we have a platform that can provide robust security. So we tend to see our level of investment in that is quite higher than most typical RMC producers.
Interesting. Now, okay, great. So the data's in the system. Sounds like you've got a handle on, protecting and making that data secure. But the fifth, and certainly not the least, of the myths or the questions that we have to debunk are, is C60 sharing, a producer's data with third parties? And when I say sharing, right, I think typically the context is not, hey, are we using, cloud software to access the customer's data to do, software development? Mm-hmm. It's more, hey, does anybody else have access to a customer's recipes or their financial information or mm-hmm. the material costs, right? Are we sharing with any third parties that data? Mm-hmm. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I think, in all transparency, that's a tough one because, into the contracts, into our terms and agreements that we have with each customer, we do state that we don't share our data for any of those purposes, right? And, that has to be clear right from the outset. Is your data belongs to you. We use your data to provide you the insights, but we don't share your data with any other customer or vendors or third parties in terms of understanding your business analytics or any insights like that, right? We really do protect that. It's built into our contractual terms, obviously. And, the other angle to this that some RMC producers, or typically in this type of software product, is some people have concerns that we're using their data to build our AI models, which becomes our IP, and then we benefit from that. And we've been in this industry quite a while in tackling AI, and we know that that's a hurdle, right? And in other industries, that's become a hurdle. So what we did from the outset is we made sure to build all of our models with synthetic data and not our actual customer data. So while we're going through the training process, while we're going through the inference process and testing all of these capabilities in terms of AI, we do with a base model, start with synthetic data, and then we only fine tune and configure to our customers. So we're never actually using our customers' data to build our IP. So, from those two angles, we never share our data with any third parties for any use other than, hosting the data, let's say, for example, on Azure, right? We're using Microsoft Azure, so we host our customers' data there, but Microsoft is not using the data to build any of their AI models, and that's in the legal contracts that we have with the services that we use with them. And then when we do use data to build our models, we use synthetic data, and we never use our customer data. We just fine tune with our using our customers' data, so they only get the benefits, and only they get the benefits from that. So we really take a two-pronged approach to it.
And that's helpful and frankly very clear. So what you're saying is pretty black and white. I mean, one, we're not sharing, a customer's, operating commercial data, however mm-hmm. you want to call it, right? What's in that database? We're not making that available to access to any third mm-hmm. parties. And the other bit is, we're not using, customer data, sort of to our advantage in terms of model training, et cetera. Mm-hmm. That's done with synthetic data.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So we've covered a lot of ground. I'm going to try and recap, and you both tell me if you think I've captured this. But we had 5 myths to debunk. I don't have the data I need to use C60. My data is a mess. It'll take me too long to implement. Is my data secure in the cloud? And the fifth was, are you going to share my data with third parties? And it sounds like if I got this right, and I'll kind of paraphrase, we've got a flavor of C60 for small producer to large producers, a little bit of data to a lot of data, and whether you're just running a batch and dispatch to up to 5 streams of data with invoicing, material costs, et cetera, and everything in between. So I think there's a lot of elasticity in our in the data that you have available, and making use of C60. Is that, did I get the first one right?
Absolutely.
All right. The second one about data being messy really sounds like we've taken the time to engineer a whole bunch of data quality rules to make sure the data is useful. And we've done that by applying our ReadyMix knowledge.
100%.
All right. Thanks, Mithuna. And as far as implementation goes, Mithuna, you talked about, hey, as long as we've got, user password, pre-built connector to one of the sort of key industry systems that are available, we're, once we have access to the data, it takes about 48 hours to load that data into C60. Is that correct?
Exactly.
That sounds pretty fast, but so I like that. I like that one. Data security on the cloud. Carlos, you talked about 3 things, right? Or, first of all, this multi-tenant, right? We don't share your database. You have your private database in the cloud. You talked about encryption as the data's at rest and moving. And for those that need sort of those advanced data isolation capabilities, we can even deploy C60 database in a private customer managed Azure instance.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I guess last but not least on the data sharing piece, it's in our contracts. So I guess the best bet is for a customer to read our T's and C's and see that, frankly, we're not sharing their data with third parties. But you also said that we're not using their data for AI model training, which is an added protection for customers.
Mm-hmm.
So, anything we missed in today's conversation, or you think we should talk about that maybe we haven't covered?
Well, I think there's always a lot to talk about with regards to AI and data, Ramy. But I think you summed up the takeaways or pretty succinctly. It's we can onboard data quickly. You don't need to have a lot of data to get value. And we make sure that it's secure, and we provide options to get over any security hurdles that you have. And, I think there's a lot of other topics we can discuss, but maybe we'll save those for another K-Factor.
Well, I think I'm going to take you up on that because there probably is a ton of other topics I could think about. I won't get into it now because I'll sidetrack us, but I will definitely take you up on that offer. So with that, Mithuna, Carlos, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. To our viewers, thank you for listening. I would invite you to please give us a like, share, subscribe, give us feedback. Let us know what other topics. If you have more data questions for Carlos and Mithuna, please send them through, and we'll make sure to address them on a next episode of K-Factor. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Have a good day.